So here we are in the lab, and I've already logged into the XMS UI. Nothing much has changed here. I think this is a little bit more information here than was in the 2.3 talking about volume capacity and used, but all in all, everything else I believe is the same. So let's take a look at a few things here. We'll start with administration, and let's start with cluster encryption. So this is where you would enable the self-encrypting drives. Notice mine says encryption is not possible. Encryption can be applied only if supported by all SSDs in the cluster, including the local disk SSDs. So the local disk SSDs, if you remember, are those that are in the controllers that hold the XtremIO kind of OS that the controllers use and also used for metadata dumps. But one note here is if you have an original 10 terabyte brick like I have, which is why it's not supported, and you add one of the newer ones, you still can't turn on encryption because it has to be supported by all. It'll tell me here that my current state is disabled. Oops, and I accidentally clicked over. And here's where you would enable encryption. So you would drop this down, hit enable and apply, and you can set a pin to set to kind of use it to seed the information for the keys. And again, remember this is using self-encrypting drives, and so there's really nothing else you have to deal with, key management or anything like that. It's basically you just hit it and off it goes. Some security configurations for iSCSI. This is where you'll set CHAP. So you can set it for initiator or initiator and target. If you set it for initiator and target, you're going to need to configure username and password confirmation. CHAP here is no different than CHAP anywhere else. If you've ever used it on any other system, you would set the username and password. Then you would go to the host and enable CHAP and set the same username and password. It's a very simple system, but it is occasionally used for authentication to iSCSI. Not all the time, not even the majority, but I do see it used in places. Ports. This is where you can set the TCP port. Notice that it is grayed out. To do this, what you would need to do is go over to the CLI or SSHN, log in as the tech interface here, and run the stop-cluster command. Then you would be able to come back over here. You would be able to, this would light up. You could change it, hit apply. Then you would come back to the CLI terminal and run a start-cluster command. And that would bring the cluster back up. But you are going to halt I/O, so you do need to take a good maintenance window. And back. There we go. Here's where you enable jumbo frames. Check the box. You can go up to 9,000. If you want to do less than 9,000, you just type that number in there. If you uncheck that, you'll notice here it says if you're not using jumbo frames, the only valid answer right here is 1,500. So again, real easy. Jumbo frames, just be sure that you've got jumbo frames enabled end-to-end, meaning on the XtremIO, on any and all switches that the host will use to get to the XtremIO, and enable it on the hosts themselves. We always see people miss a switch or something like that, and it causes very sporadic behavior as a switch will drop a frame that it thinks is too large. And then let's see, I think that's it. There's nothing here that I remember in the portal config. No, it'll show the port and you still can't change the VLAN. I was hoping we'd see that in 2.4, but as you see, that is still grayed out. So that's your iSCSI and your encryption. Back over to configuration, this is what we saw in an earlier lab. I've got my volumes here. I've created a folder for snapshots. This was not here by default. I made that. And you can do snaps. So we kind of saw this earlier, but it was grayed out. Go to a volume, right-click the volume, and you can do create a snapshot. And then it's going to append a suffix to the original volume name. So whatever the volume name was, it'll append this. By default, it's the date and time. You can override that if you want. And I created this for my snaps, and I created it. And now we have a snap. So I'll create another one. And as I said, you can create snaps of snaps. So right-click, create snap. And you can just do a bunch of these. And there we go. What you can also do is once this is done, you can go back to the original volume, right click and say show as snapshot hierarchy, and it will show you kind of a tree structure for all your snaps. You can right click one of your snaps and do show all snaps from this point, and it'll say from this point these are the ones that we have created. You can then take the snapshots. Let's see, making sure it's changing this over here. 2016. It's too short to see it, but it should be. Let's see, yep, -2 and -3 there at the end. So as you click it, it'll change here. You can then go over to the host side, choose your host, and then map just like we did when we mapped a regular volume. This is no different. It acts just like a regular volume. If I hit apply, it would then go ahead and map the line over, and the host would be able to access that just like any other line or volume and access the data. And remember, it is read and write. So it's a quick and easy way. I mean, the snap functionality works really, really well. You can, create and do anything you want to do there. You can go in and delete the middle snap. And notice I still have the 3 child snaps, or the 2 child snapshots off of it, plus the original child. So again, it doesn't delete everything from that point down. Do a multi-select and a delete. And the last thing I wanted to show you that was new and cool, let me flip it back to regular view, is, let's see, modify volume. So you can click modify volume, and here's where you resize it. So if I want to make this 2 terabyte, I'd type 2, hit OK, and off it would go. And that's how you do a volume resize. So, minor stuff I think in 2.4, but important. Volume resize is a big deal. Snapshots are a huge deal, to be honest with you. And jumbo frames for iSCSI, though the benefit is often questionable, a lot of people ask for that. So that's it for the lab. Let's go ahead and jump back over to the slides.